And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with ILona Anderson. ILona, thank you for spending some time with me today.
Hi, Michael. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me as your guest.
Well, you are so welcome. It's going to be a fun conversation. Ilona has a great background. She's going to tell you that in a minute. She's built a couple of law firms to seven figures plus. She's started another law firm. I love the name Carpe Diem Law Firm because she helps business owners really seize the day by engaging with legal counsel early so you can avoid a bunch of headaches later. And wow, can we attest to that? So I can't wait to get into this conversation because freedom, as you know, Ilona, is really what entrepreneurs get into business for most of the time. And too many times they get constrained in the nuts and bolts and everything. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But as we get there, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Well, there's a I guess short and long answer to those questions. I'll try to condense it. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, as a lawyer, I had to go to law school, and my path in my legal career has not been linear. So
Okay.
I started out at Big Law, doing commercial litigation. Then I subsequently worked at KPMG and their legal department doing mergers and acquisitions and due diligence projects. I worked at made a prominent asbestos and tobacco PI law firm, and that law firm is really what prepared me for ultimately going out on my own because I've handled so many different types of cases there. Had my first employment case, had my first trial, did a lot of kind of high stakes things in a very high paced environment. And when I got pregnant with my first child, I was in a situation where I did not want to put my career on hold, but I also wanted to be in a position where I could bond with my baby.
Man.
And I thought, I mean, this was pre-COVID, pre-flexible work arrangements. I was working at a law firm where we were working 6 days a week. Saturdays were mandatory. So when I was 5 months pregnant, I decided to resign and go out on my own. Then
Okay.
shortly thereafter, I met somebody who then subsequently became my law partner for the next 10 years. And together we built a boutique employee rights law firm in Miami, Florida. And so we had a good run for 10 years. We helped hundreds of employees recover their unpaid wages and remedy the effects of employment discrimination. Our law firm even landed a landmark verdict in the Southern District of Florida in a religious discrimination case. But then, sometimes good things have to come to an end, and my partner and I were no longer aligned, and I made a decision
Mhm.
to exit that partnership. So when I made that exit, I kind of another opportunity fell into my lap. So I started another law firm that was always intended to be temporary in nature. But what we were doing, we were essentially a compliance check for a large ERTC filer with the IRS, Employee Retention Tax Credits.
Okay.
And so, as part of that law firm, me and my team helped hundreds of business owners claim their rightful ERTC credits. And then,
Okay.
when that program wound down, I launched Carpe Diem Law Firm. And so, when I launched Carpe Diem Law Firm, I decided to pivot and really focus more on being of service to entrepreneurs versus in my prior
Right.
partnership when we were doing plaintiff side employment law because I love being around other entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial energy. And I identify with entrepreneurs as well, having built a couple of law firms at that point and having scaled them to seven figures. And so I've pivoted to focus really on employment law compliance and defense because I've realized in my career how many lawsuits are preventable and how many employers really, that vast majority of employers, not everybody, we've seen it all and we've, have sued some
Yeah.
violators. But by and large, I find that majority of employers want to do the right thing. They want to be compliant, but there's just so many landmines in employment law. And employers, they're busy entrepreneurs, and oftentimes they think they can't afford good advice. They don't bother to get good advice, or they get bad advice, or they just, Google or Chat GPT
God forbid.
how to comply. And we all know that that you can't really, rely
Yeah.
on. And so I've pivoted my practice to help entrepreneurs with employment law compliance and defense. And I also added trademarks so that I could be there earlier on for my
Yeah.
business clients, for my creator and founder clients, and help them protect their brands, because that's another aspect that's frequently overlooked that down the road can cause major, major issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, that's what a journey you've been on, right, over the years, and bringing all of that to bear to I'm gonna call it a passion project, carpe diem, right? Because it's your heart, but it allows you to run a great law firm and still be with your family, just like you have been for years, because that was important to you, and I appreciate that because I'm a family guy as well, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to do one or the other. I want to do both, and you found a way to do it. And entrepreneurs many times fail to do that. They want to do it, but they don't know how because they're stuck in systems and things, or they get involved in a lawsuit maybe, and they wake up one day going, "What do I do?" And now they're stuck because they could have probably prevented that if they
Mhm.
would have engaged earlier. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I had mentioned earlier, I find that most legal issues are preventable. Let me give you an example with
Yeah,
trademarks.
that'd be great.
An entrepreneur, for example, decides to launch a new business, product, service, course, offering, right? They come up with this clever name that they fall in love with. They don't really bother. I mean, they may do a cursory Google search, maybe a USPTO search looking for exact matches. They don't find any exact matches and they think they're in the clear, right? And they don't really bother with the trademark. They think, okay, I'll worry about it when I'm bigger, when I'm more established, when I have bigger cash flow. And then down the road, when they are more established, when they have finally have that cash flow and they contact an attorney, oftentimes it turns out that the name is not available. So somebody else owns a name that is substantially similar, where it poses a likelihood of confusion, and therefore likely their application would be denied by the US Patent and Trademark Office, because names don't have to be identical to
Yeah,
pose a likelihood of confusion, or maybe their name is too generic and too descriptive and does not fall under what could be trademarked. And so at this point, or maybe they even, maybe they realize that they're infringing upon somebody else's brand, and that's a problem, because it's
it's a
just a
problem.
matter of time before they receive a cease and desist notice or get sued for infringement. And so at this point, they either continue to live in fear of, potential lawsuit,
Right.
and they can't really turn their brand into an asset because they can't trademark it, or they have to entirely rebrand. And the average cost of rebranding is about $30,000, not
Yeah.
including the cost of loss of brand recognition and customer loyalty. And the average cost of defending yourself in an infringement lawsuit is in the six figures. So $2,000 or $3,000 that you might need to spend on a trademark early on is a
Yeah.
worthwhile investment to make sure that you can safely continue putting money into your brand and promoting your brand and making sure that you can claim it as yours and make it your business asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just nailed one of the aspects is entrepreneurs have this expectation maybe or belief or something that hiring a trademark attorney like yourself is just exorbitant. It's going to be 5 6 figures just to have you, and the honest truth is it's not. It is.
Not,
I mean, it's not $100, but
Mhm.
it might only be 3 or 4 5 thousand to make sure you are now locked in and
Yeah, even
protect.
less. It's like literally under $3,000
Yeah.
for
So
the entire process, because that's the thing. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, well, I can just go on USPTO.gov and I can fill out the forms myself. Why do I need a lawyer? But the lawyering doesn't come in and going and filling out the forms.
right,
Lawyering comes in knowing how to conduct a comprehensive search, how to ensure that that name is able to be trademarked. Because once you apply for a trademark, you wait about a year for the USPTO to approve it. You know,
right.
entrepreneurs aren't going to sit around waiting for approval. They're going to spend that year promoting their business, investing into marketing, selling their products. And so you want to have a certain degree of confidence, even though no lawyer can ever guarantee an outcome, but you want to have a certain degree of confidence that that process that you started will ultimately be successful. Or, an attorney tell you, you know what, don't bother with this name. There's too many conflicts or it's too generic. You need to come up with a different name now before you just
Yeah.
wait a year and several couple $1,000s.
Absolutely. And not to mention down the road, whether you are infringing on somebody else's trademark or maybe somebody's infringing on yours and you now need to protect yours. If you don't have a great attorney, getting into that battleground is a no-win situation just for an entrepreneur because of the time, the effort, the money, the lack of knowledge, right? Do you see people trying to do that?
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just not what, as entrepreneurs, what we need to be doing. What we need to be doing is getting our ideas out to the market and protecting them at the same time. I can't even imagine how many patents, like Apple or Google or something have. That's probably like the first thing they do. But smaller entrepreneurs who are trying to grow businesses, we think backwards so many times. I need to get
Yeah.
bigger first. And it's like, no, you need to
Then,
get the
yeah.
protection first.
Yeah. And the same thing happens with employment law as well, because
Yeah.
when we think about, for example, a proper payment of wages, proper payment of minimum wages, overtime wages, proper classification, because a lot of disputes happen due to classifying somebody as an independent contractor
Right.
when in reality they're an employee, right? People
Yeah.
think, well, it's my choice if I pay somebody via 1099 versus W-2. Well, no, not entirely, because the IRS, case law, Department of Labor, they all have a test, more or less the same, give or take,
Right.
a six-prong test that basically evaluates whether different factors point in the direction that the economic reality suggests that this is an employer-employee relationship versus an independent contractor relationship. So it's not a choice. And if you misclassify somebody and then you don't pay them minimum wage, you don't pay them overtime, they can come after you to
Right.
claim that minimum wage, to claim that overtime. And then the other thing a lot of employers don't realize, they think, well, if we're talking about minimum wage and overtime, it's just going to be a slap on the wrist, right? Like these are not large
Yeah.
amount of money. So if it happens, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
But under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the federal law that protects and ensures that employees get paid their minimum and overtime wages, there's certain provisions that, first of all, the damages that the employee is entitled to, the unpaid wages that the employee is able to prove, they're almost automatically doubled. And also there's the fee shifting provisions that says that the prevailing employee can recover their attorney's fees from the losing employer. So then all of a sudden, the employer finds themselves in a situation to where they're paying their own attorney to defend themselves, they're paying the plaintiff's attorney, the employee's attorney, and they're paying double the amount of alleged unpaid wages. So a couple $1,000s of unpaid overtime could turn into, five figures of
Right.
money spent. So.
Right. Yeah. And if you've got one employee, that's one thing. But if you have 20 or 30 or 50 employees, that's a whole different
And
ballgame.
that's the other thing. If you're not properly paying one employee, chances are you're not properly paying
Yeah.
all
And
the
I can
other.
I can
Yeah.
only imagine the domino effect if one employee gets a lawsuit settled, they're like, hello, and so, but
Mhm.
all of that is able to be mitigated when you engage early. So let's talk about, I mean, who is like an ideal client for you? Who's out there that you know that they need your services, but they're an entrepreneur, they're a business owner, and they either don't know or they know and they're ignoring it. Who fits that category?
Sure. So it would be nowadays, you know how intellectual property, it used to be something that only big companies used to worry about.
Right.
Nowadays, everybody who is an entrepreneur has a brand, right? You're building a brand, you're building potentially an online business, you have a course, you have some kind of an offering, you have something to protect, maybe a logo, slogan, etc., right? It's not something that's kind of in the what used to be owned by large corporations only. Now anybody who considers themselves an entrepreneur has a brand that needs to be protected. So the sooner you start thinking about trademark protection, the better. Ideally, even before you launch, because you can even file an application with the USPTO based on your intent to use a certain brand.
Okay.
So the sooner you apply, the sooner you have that priority date. And if somebody applies for something similar later on, their priority date is going to be after yours. So
Right.
you have certain priority rights. So for trademark registration, anybody with a brand, logo, slogan, product name, service name, something that they're trying to protect. And then for employment law compliance, as a company grows, first of all, even if you're not yet hiring employees and you truly are properly and correctly hiring independent contractors, you need agreements for that. And I can certainly help with those independent contractor agreements, as well as, vendor agreements or employee handbooks. I mean, contract law is so important, or having proper contracts is so important because it provides clarity. So many
Yeah.
people come to me and say, well, I only work with people that I trust, and I know they're not going to screw me, and I know they're not going to stab me in the back. And so I really feel like I don't need contracts. And my response to that is most contract disputes don't happen because somebody screwed somebody. They
Right.
happen because of a misunderstanding. Because if you make this handshake deal, well, this party's understanding is X and this party's understanding is Y, because you never really sat down to iron out all the details, all the what ifs. What happens if this happen, in this scenario? What
Yeah.
happens in that scenario? And then somebody feels like they've been treated unfairly and then they come after the other party. So it's not just, contracts are more than just about trust. I mean, obviously, like, anybody can go and violate and breach a contract if they have
Right.
that kind of malicious intent. But what the real benefit of contract law is having that meeting of the minds and have an opportunity to discuss all these details and put them on paper, and have a signed document that confirms that everybody understood that these are the
Yep.
negotiated terms that everybody will abide by.
That's
And
right.
down the road, as entrepreneurs start growing and hiring employees, that's when they start need to think about um, on anti-discrimination policies, proper classification, who is exempt, who's non-exempt, how do I properly pay them, how to comply with federal and state employment laws. So really, anytime from inception until you're able to have, I don't know, in-house counsel,
There you go.
you really need an attorney on your side.
Yeah, and that's so important because you just listed about 6 or 7 things there, and as you're going through those, I'm sitting here thinking, as an entrepreneur, right? Give me a stick, poke me in the eye, that'll be less painful. Really, I mean, seriously. But that's why God created people like you, who understand that, who like it, who can protect us. And like you just said, having an attorney, I mean, we have a corporate attorney. He's not on staff, but he is at our beck and call. If we need him, it's an email away or a phone call away to go, okay, here's what's going on, Jonathan. And sometimes it's just his counsel, right, on the phone, and we're like, okay, good. Other times we have to engage with him, and he has to walk us through. But having him in our corner brings so much peace of mind to go, okay, I know I'm protected. I know I'm good. It's going to be, it might get ugly. Okay, well, but we know that we're within the bounds of the law, and
Yeah.
we're going to approach it in a high integrity manner and protect ourselves and look for the best interest of our opponent, our client, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the relationship an entrepreneur should have with their attorney, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're also, by having an attorney, you're also protecting the team, because as you start growing, you can't be, you may say, well, I'm never gonna, get myself in trouble because I'm honest, ethical, I understand the law. Well, you have other people working for you.
Right.
Somebody might, I don't know, say something wrong that could be interpreted as sexual harassment. I mean, having an attorney also allows them to get involved when somebody in your team goes rogue or just does
Right.
something stupid.
That's right. Yeah, and people do that. So, and I'm thinking, Henry, I just, as we were just talking and you were doing things, I'm wondering how, and I'm not sure what part of the law it would really fit into, but with the advent of, like, Chat GPT and AI agents and all this other computer stuff that's coming really, really fast,
Mhm.
how is that going to play into the protection aspect of it? Because it's going to be so easy for a computer to go out and grab something and say, well, use this, but the AI agent hasn't done all the research. Are you experiencing any of that, or do you have thoughts?
Look, if I was put out of business by AI, that's totally fine. I'd find something else to do, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. I see it as an amazing tool that makes certainly things more efficient, that can come up with the right wording, right? Instead
Yeah.
of, spending an hour drafting a paragraph to come up with the perfect wording, you could spend 5 minutes on it. But I feel it's still not a replacement
Oh,
for legal
100%.
knowledge. Like,
Oh,
I cannot tell you how many mistakes ChatGPT makes.
oh,
It makes so many mistakes. And if you don't know, you don't know. Me knowing the law, I can say, look, what you just put out is completely inaccurate from a legal standpoint. But for a layperson, if they don't know, they don't know. And what
Right.
often happens is, yeah, sure, you Google some provisions, you have ChatGPT draft something, and so you come up with this Frankenstein document.
Right.
You really don't know what it means. And if it has not been negotiated and explained to the other side, then you have not accomplished the objective of having a document that protects you, that you know what it means, that the other side know what it means, that truly represents the meeting of the minds.
That's right. No, that's great because so many people, I mean, to me, it goes back to if, are you going to go online and create your final estate and will and all of that online, or are you going to hire a competent attorney because that's really important? Hopefully the latter, right? Same thing here. If you're a business owner, you best not be using AI tools to create your contracts and your agreements with your team, with your clients, because A, it's probably going to be wrong at some level. B, you don't understand what it is. And C, that's going to be trouble in the future. And so it's just so important to reach out and to connect with somebody, an attorney that you trust. And that's why I love having people like ILona on here, because we don't have many trademark and patent attorneys or attorneys who do the people side of the business that we just all take for granted. Especially, you mentioned something with all the 1099 contractors out there having agreements that they sign, right? We put that in place years ago, but so many companies don't do that. And they just
Yeah.
hire a virtual AI or a virtual assistant or a virtual team member, and they don't think about, they just open themselves up to a lawsuit. Really, pray it never happens, but
Yeah.
why would you take the chance?
And I think it even goes beyond that. It impacts team culture, right? If you
Mhm.
have clear policies, you have a clear and fair employee handbook, everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing. Everybody understands, I don't know, the disciplinary system or the consequences of non-performance or absenteeism, the performance evaluation, the grievance process, etc. It just creates for a better workplace where employees are happier, less stressed, there's more harmony. They know that if there's something in place that allows you to communicate your grievances and somebody will listen,
Yeah.
so they don't feel like they have to go to the Department of Labor or to an attorney at any sign of,
Right.
something being wrong, like your paycheck been late or something like that. So it really serves you in preventing those lawsuits, having happier, more productive employees and a more harmonious place.
Yeah. And when you do that, you get more freedom as a business owner. And really, I think that's the heartbeat, ILona, of you and your firm, is finding that freedom that comes with having the right protections in place. It's funny, when I looked at your website, I was thinking back to my early days of marriage, and my wife's the bookkeeper and she's the money manager, and she put us on a budget, and I was like, I hate budgets, right? Of course, because I just like to spend money. But she put us on a budget, and I looked at a budget like guardrails over a bridge. It kept us safe, but within the guardrails, I could do all kinds of things. She gave me my allowance, and I could go spend it and have fun, but I was protected. And I think that's kind of the imagery I want to leave our audience with, is working with ILona and putting these guardrails up, these protections, trademark protection, HR protection, things of that nature, allow you a ton of freedom, safety, peace of mind. Because if you don't have them, the accident's coming. It's not a
Yeah.
matter of if, it's really a matter of when, honestly, in today's litigious society.
And really, it's about having the right people in the right
Absolutely.
places doing what they're trained to do, right? If
Yes.
you have a business and you were a philosophy or anthropology major in college, and you creating something that requires writing code. I mean, are you really going to teach yourself writing code, or are you going to outsource it to somebody? I mean, maybe you'll teach somebody yourself if it's fun for you, but
Right.
practically speaking, you're probably going to hire a coder to take care of that,
Yeah.
right? So,
Absolutely.
bookkeeping, are you really going to teach yourself everything about accounting for your business, or are you going to hire bookkeepers? So same goes with lawyers. Outsource it to people who know what you're doing so that you can focus on what you do best in your business and truly being the CEO of your business and creating that life of freedom, which is really number one reason why most people start their businesses is to accomplish personal freedom and financial freedom.
Absolutely. All that allows us to seize the day. So, Ilona, how do people reach out? If there's entrepreneurs out here listening and they're going, you probably need to do something. How do they reach out to you? Where's the best place to find you?
Okay, I would say my website, carpediemlawfirm.com,
Okay.
carpediemlawfirm.com. On Instagram, I am Carpe Diem Lawyer, and on LinkedIn, I'm Ilona Anderson.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we'll grab those. We'll put those in the show notes so that you can have them when you listen to this. I'd recommend you just stop and go back and re-listen to this whole thing because there were nuggets of wisdom that Ilona shared with us that all of us as entrepreneurs and business owners, we really need to be about, not just focused on growth and growth and growth. Yes, that's important, but protection and saving money and making sure the asset that we are creating is well protected for life. That's going to bring a lot of joy, a lot of peace, and a lot of freedom. That's going to honestly allow you to propel your business further faster, I think. So reach out to Ilona. I've got her information in the show notes, and see how she can really help you protect your business, gain some freedom, and, well, seize the day.
Thank you.
Ilona,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thanks for
And
being.
I just wanted to add really quickly because you talked about the entrepreneurial sort of mindset, and it triggered a thought that as entrepreneurs, really, I think one of our biggest assets is ability to delay gratification and to think in the long term. Because when you starting a business, oftentimes, you're the last person to get paid. You do,
Yeah,
you're doing everything, but you have a vision toward which you're working. So the the idea of hiring preventative somebody to do preventative lawyering for you to avoid problems down the road, that really goes hand in hand with that long-term vision, right? On the
absolutely.
front end, okay, maybe you need to spend a little bit of money, you need to research, find the right attorney who's the right fit for you. You really need to sit down and figure out what assets you need to protect, or to really collaborate with the attorney on the right policies and procedures for your employee handbook, etc. But this is what's going to protect your vision and your business in the long run down the road.
Absolutely. So well said. Again, re-listen to this whole episode because there's lots of nuggets there. And then check the show notes. I've got links to where you can find and follow Ilona Anderson, Carpe Diem Law Firm. Ilona, thank you again for being my guest. And thank you all for listening to Experts Speak. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.